So, my hometown is changing. Every town changes, but I can distinctly label with each passing decade how completely different the vibe has been. What, people expect when they live here. There have been phases, if you will. I'd like to talk about that sometime, but for now, I just have a rant at what it's currently become and why it's getting scary to want to stay. My partner has been helping his parents sell off stuff that they don't need, and when it comes to Facebook Marketplace, he typically defaults to meeting buyers at accessible in town locations, like at the Walmart parking lot. When he arrived to meet with someone, there was an older woman in a nearby vehicle, window down, making a show of calling the cops on the guy. Because he'd arrived 10 minutes early and wanted to stretch his legs, the lady was convinced that he was casing cars to steal. Rather than ask what he was up to or if he needed anything or why he was there, she immediately yelled at him and demanded that he leave the parking lot. He couldn't because he was waiting for my partner to trade a receiver. He was also going to meet another seller for secondhand speakers to go with it, so even then he had to stick around. The guy wasn't particularly sketchy looking either. The older white woman just didn't like his vibe and therefore he didn't have a right to walk around a parking lot. Tempted to stay and see what transpired, my partner asked the guy if he thought he'd be okay, and he said that he thought so my partner left. I wasn't involved, but I wish that I knew what happened after that. It's getting to the point that I'd like to know that this older person actually ended up facing consequences for such an instant vitriolic reaction, get told by the police that they are not right or valid, or this behavior will just happen again in perpetuity because there's no consequences. It's not that these unhinged instances are popping up more online with Karens and the like, but it being in my hometown after what happened, the altercation that made me want to shut myself inside like a hermit being so similar, I can't deny that it's getting worse here. We've always had a large retirement population in this town. And up until the last half decade, with new families moving into the ridiculous amount of unaffordable housing being built, the town was dying because all that was left were older people, rich, retired, or vacationing ones, not contributing to the town economy, which I mean in terms of keeping businesses open. And that part hasn't changed. But now, the aura of the town is at conflict with itself. White, privileged older generations who want to act like it's a small town still, that it's their town, are getting hostile to the new families, the young people filling in the positions at all the corporations swooping in, the ethnic diversity, and generally having to conform to anything that they don't want to do for the sake of a social working order. They don't like the look of you, and they feel they have the right to call the cops. I don't want to fearmonger, I don't want to make ageist generalizations, but this is the fear that I am developing of older generations in my area because of the lived experience that I am gaining. It wouldn't be scary behavior if it was only ever nosiness or invalid prejudices that they keep to themselves. Like, getting the cops called on you shouldn't be scary if you're not actually doing something wrong, which I know is a completely privileged bias for me to have, because whether you've done anything wrong or not, cops can be quite scary for minorities no matter the situation. But my point is that if that were only it, then that wouldn't be so bad. A third party getting involved would theoretically de-escalate the situation because there was no proper cause for it in the first place. The scary fucking part is when these sorts of people feel so justified in their wild, baseless judgments that they act on it themselves. This story, covered on Charlie's channel titled Worst Cyclist Ever, really messed me up because this exact sort of thing is escalating around me. Regardless of whether that young driver really was too close when passing him, this man believes he's entirely in the right, following him, calling the cops, opening his door, dragging him out, and holding him up until authorities could get there. All of this is based on a matter of his opinion, and undoubtedly not liking the look of the young man. It's so much like the incident that we went through, and I'll save that for another video on its own, but it's not the only anecdote I have on this topic. Of course it isn't, because like I said, these things are increasing. Driving through a nearby town, we were going down a road between two parking lots. A very large truck was pulled up to exit one of the parking lots, who was supposed to wait because we had the right of way. He did not, however, only checked the opposite direction for oncoming cars, and he pulled out in front of us. My partner braked when he shouldn't have had to, gave a honk, and flipped the guy off as he fully pulled out in front of us. I honestly didn't think that the guy in the truck could even see that, considering the bottom of his driver window was above the top of ours. But I guess he did. We were in an unfamiliar town looking for a shop that we'd never been to before, so we did a little circle around the parking lot area while I got the directions for the GPS on the screen. At a stop sign, however, we noticed that the truck is behind us, even though he'd pulled out and cut us off going the completely opposite way. My partner takes a corner and then another casually to confirm, and sure enough, the truck follows, even though there's no reason, given the direction that he'd been going, why he's circling around the parking lot area in the opposite direction he was originally going. As we drove through the parking area that he just came from, it was pretty clear that he was undoubtedly following us. We ended up losing him by pulling up to a set of lights in the turning lane with less notice of our signals than usual, and he ended up going straight through on the still green. The truck revved and sped through the intersection like he was mad that he'd lost us, and I was actually genuinely worried that wasn't the end of it, that he would circle back around looking for us. And why? Why? What was the end goal? Follow us until we parked somewhere so he could get out, and what? When someone is motivated enough to follow our car, can I really believe that all they have planned is to get out and yell at us? What would that even do? Anyone who is mad enough at getting honked at and flipped off because they almost caused an accident by not looking both ways when pulling out, to follow someone in a delusional sense of righteousness, how am I supposed to have faith that they aren't violent? There's nothing about that potential interaction they would accept. Do you really think they'd be willing to hear, hey, you didn't follow the rules of the road and deserve to be called out on it? I don't think they did a Yui and tailed us just to apologize for their problem. That's the shit that scares me the most. Unpredictable people. So in their own heads that nothing they can do can be wrong. So I'm afraid that they're capable of anything. Enough people die every day for absolutely stupid, petty reasons. I am terrified of becoming one of them, because it's only getting worse. People are dissociating, losing empathy, just straight up lacking the ability to reason through things or have any emotional intelligence or control. There isn't really an end to this video. I'm just scared of people. Can you blame me? I'm going back in my hole. General interactions are steadily getting worse, and there's no way to minimize contacts with these sorts of people if I literally want to exist. So, if they want to lock on and make someone else's day worse, there's not much any of us can do except pray things won't go totally sour, because as it is now, there aren't enough consequences in place to stop these behaviors in the first place. God bless Americanada.